He would always check my phone, check my
Far out.
emails. So I didn't have, it was really, really hard to have. He was just monitoring me the whole time. And then if he ever found out that I'd even been on Facebook, or how it would break loose.
Let's start this thing, Paul. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Ask the Duo podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
And this week we're talking about relationships, but not the ones that we've usually been touching on. We're talking about toxic, unhealthy, and abusive relationships. So a little disclaimer, this one is going to be a heavier topic than usual. So just a little heads up from us.
Yeah. So this is something that we can't imagine anyone to go through. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not a healthy situation to be in. We always like to share these kinds of experiences so that the listeners can learn from this experience.
Yeah.
And we've brought in someone special today who has gone through a journey or journeys of a toxic, unhealthy relationship. And that is Shantal.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
We usually would say the last name, but we can't pronounce your last name. So if you want to share.
It's like a trick name. Don't worry, it took me like to grade 3 to spell my own last name because it was so long.
Wait, actually, how do you pronounce your last name?
It is Van Moolenbroek. Tell me your version of it.
Van Moolenbroek.
What?
What?
Van Moolenbroek.
Van Moolenbroek?
Moolenbroek, yeah.
Moolenbroek. Close enough.
It's Dutch.
I love those names though. They always look really cool. Like when you do signatures and stuff, they come out really nice.
Yeah, and get sore. Yeah, it's a bit long.
Yeah. But yeah, because you've gone through these experiences, we thought that it'd be really good to just share your journey and what you've learned from these things, and also just sharing to other people who may be in similar positions, you know, what to do or how to look out for signs of these things. So let's start off with just a little background about your relationship experiences.
So pretty much I attracted myself to wrong types of people that weren't happy within themselves, lacked confidence, and pretty much hadn't healed from their past traumas, and then they project them onto the other person, unfortunately. And yeah, so just going through a couple of unhealthy relationships. Not all of them were abusive as such, but you know, when I went to the counselor and they pick apart the relationship and they start identifying things that you can still be in a toxic relationship, even if there is no physical abuse or, you know, mental abuse. It's you can have different types. So you can have ones that are obviously violent and controlling, manipulating, and then you can also have ones that you're like an enabler, you're overcaring, you're too empathetic, and they're codependent relationships. And they're a little bit, I find a little bit harder to identify because I hadn't actually experienced that. I didn't realize that was going on. And then once I kind of got woken up to the fact and then kind of connected every single thing together, I was like, oh my God, I've been doing that for so long. And this is why it's an unhealthy relationship. And it is hard to get out of these relationships because you think it's love, you think you're doing the right thing, you're staying loyal, contributing to the household. And it is hard to get out of.
Yeah. Sam was just telling me that there was one where you were in it for quite a long time and it was just one really hard to get out of.
That was a domestic violence relationship. And with people that are narcissists, they treat you so amazing at first, and then they slowly chip away at you and break down your self-esteem, your confidence. They take away things like your possessions slowly. They start to control you financially. They slowly cut off all your friends, take you away from your family. And so then you become somewhat trapped, and then you're fearful of them. So they become the only person in your life that you don't know anywhere else to go. And because they have all this power and control over you, it is quite scary to step out into the outside world and try and remove yourself from it because you feel like you've got nowhere to go or you won't be safe in leaving. And the partners do, unfortunately, and can get killed
Mm,
from leaving alone, even if the police are involved or whatsoever. And so I found with that, you had to be really smart in what you were doing. So I pretty much I managed to get back out into work and maintained it. But, some nights you'd go home and you didn't know what you're going to get. And I saved quietly. And then through my job at the time, they helped me get out. And that was through the police. But the only way out of those relationships, and it's really hard, I had to let go of all my personal belongings, my dog, every single thing, and just cut them off and disappear. And that was the only thing for me, even though that was hard, that worked. And because I'd tried a few other times, but because you're in this like toxic bond and you'd rather know where they are than not know where they are kind of thing,
yeah.
it is scary. And unfortunately, your mind frame at that time is stuck and you can't see anything past it.
Yeah,
Damn.
especially when they slowly take things away from you
Yeah, and you
too.
don't have any confidence left, like, you have nothing, like, and you're
Mm,
a shell of your former self, and I think that is what makes it really hard, and there's, like, lots of women out there like that in those situations, and to know if you do something wrong or you're not obedient in that sense, that you go home and you have complications to deal with at
Mm.
home that other people can't do anything, and it's only you and that person in the house. So, in saying that, yeah, it is, when I see my friends or I've had a couple of girlfriends and they disappear on me when I see them enter the relationship, you kind of think, "Oh, yeah, they're really happy," and it's not normally the case. Normally, if your friend disappears in a relationship off the planet, I've found that there's something more going on.
mm,
And you've
Shit.
gotta try and kinda leave that door open, and you can't tell them not to see that person. They have to be ready themselves because it isn't easy to leave once you're in it, unfortunately. And because they don't like, when I was in it, I didn't have boundaries, and I've had to learn to create those boundaries, and it's taken a long time. I had a relationship after that, and it was still an unhealthy relationship. It was better than the previous, but it wasn't healthy still because I still hadn't learnt to create the boundaries that I needed in place for myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And I was just gonna ask, during that process of, developing the relationship, were there any signs in that point in time that you're like, oh, this is unhealthy? Or were you just like, oh, maybe it's just like a one-time thing? Or like, what were
Um,
you thinking during the time?
Pretty much you're normally really swept off your feet, like, with love, and they treat you, like, amazingly. And then once they've got you, then it all starts to fall apart. And normally, like, the abusive narcissists, they'll abuse you, and then they'll be really nice to you, and, they cry, and that's my weakness. I like to see the good in everybody and believe in them, and, you feel sorry for them, but that's the cycle they keep you in.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in another relationship, is that I just constantly felt sorry for that person. So I wanted to try and help them and make them better and do whatever it took. And it's like I've overstepped my boundary again, where you can only do so much and then you've got to walk away.
So you were just giving a lot of benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, yeah, maybe it's
Yeah, they'll
just,
change. They'll change.
yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
think I've learned now people don't change. Everyone does something wrong in a relationship at some point that pushes, everyone's boundaries. But once is a mistake. And then I think you have to just be really clear and be like, these are my rules. Do it. See you later. And not be scared that you won't have anything after.
yeah,
But that takes time to create, learn about yourself, I
yeah.
guess, and about
Mm.
relationships.
Were there anything else that was like going through your mind during that time? There's like emotions or
Um,
thoughts or
Yeah, I was very emotional, and very scared at the time, and I think that was I was just driven by fear, and yeah, I just felt helpless most of the time, helpless and alone, and those were the difficult parts. And because of the people that they kind of surround themselves, like, that everyone would blame me. So you're constantly getting blamed for things, even if you didn't do them.
what?
Jeez.
So that, and the people, they're all weak that stand around them and let those things happen. So it is scary. And because you don't have a support network there, but everyone's supporting the narcissist, it is scary.
Yeah, I think that's the worst feeling when you're actually surrounded by people, but you're feeling very alone. I think
Oh,
that's the
yeah. And you're not
yeah,
part of
yeah,
that group.
like
And
an
it was very
outcast.
like, the man kind of,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah, that's the worst
That's
the
part.
crazy.
old school rules
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
still around in society. I think kind of our generation was more of a
yeah.
fast to have that.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you were in that moment, when you're thinking all those things, like your emotions and everything like that, did you have anyone that realized like, oh, you went missing or any
People did try to contact me, but because I wasn't allowed to have Facebook, I wasn't
shit
allowed to have and
Um,
he would always check my phone, check my
far out?
emails. So I didn't have, yeah, it was really, really hard to have. He was just monitoring me the whole time.
Far
wow.
out. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's
So
really scary.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's like gotta watch what you're doing, watch what you're
yeah.
saying.
And then if he ever found out that I'd even been on Facebook or how it would break
Oh my
loose,
god.
yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, far out.
I'm happy I'm out of it, and
Mm.
I
Yeah,
feel
so glad that you're out of it.
When you were like in those moments, did you realize you were in a toxic relationship?
at the beginning, no.
No.
Yeah. So that's the problem is by the time you identify what's going on, and then I started like Google researching and I went like, oh my God. And then you kind of go, how am I now going to get myself out of this safely? And he used to tell me if I leave, I had to leave with nothing. And I was
What?
like, it was all like my furniture and everything that I bought with my hard worked money. And I was younger then, and I guess I was like, "No," or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, "What an idiot. I should have just like possessions are possessions, and
You can
I've got
buy it.
everything back now." Like, literally, I left for nothing, and I was like, "Oh my God, my mindset being in your 20s compared to your 30s is completely
Yeah.
Different.
different."
Mm.
Mm.
And that was my own stubbornness because I was like, "What right does it?" But I was
Yeah.
like
You can make money and then buy
Yeah.
again.
yeah, I know, and I was
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, silly," but oh
Yeah.
well.
That's good. Like that's a learning curve, something that you've learned
Yeah.
along the way too, and you can apply that to other
To the
things, like other
future, and that was
situations.
probably, yeah, my biggest thing, like, to keep in your mind if you are in those relationships that possessions don't mean anything and that your life means more, your happiness means more, and if you have to get up and leave and start all over again, it's, like, 100 times worth it than placing yourself in that situation every single day and wasting your life away.
Jeez. No, it's good that you actually Googled. At that time, like obviously you're going through so much. Was that just something that you just thought of? Oh shit, may as well just
Yeah, I was, like, Googling characteristics.
Ah.
Yeah, like, trying to figure out, like,
What's happening, what's
yeah.
going on. Mm.
Mm.
For someone who's gone through a few of these situations, is there certain signs or cues, like early
Oh,
signs to
now I
kind
know them.
of
Yeah, so, one of the earliest signs is their questions like, "What are you doing? Who you with?" Those are, like, the biggest red flags. So, if I have a relationship with anyone now, if they say those words, it will trigger me, completely can't
uh,
stand them. Don't care, like, that automatically says they have trust issues. Even if you haven't given them trust issues, they've got something psychologically that they haven't healed from. So those 2 things are the biggest, and when they start putting down your friends, putting down your work, and just making remarks about what you wear, those are all really big red flags. Another thing that I noticed a lot of them did was when I, because 'cause I've been training martial arts, they would try and stop me from training martial arts. "Oh, the guys are touching you. I don't want you training with a man," and those kind of things, and, stupidly, I did stop, and I regretted that, but I kept going back, and that's what kept helping build my confidence back up each time was going back to training whenever I could, and I think that was important. But, yeah, they're telltale signs, and the other is if they try to stop you from earning money yourself or want
mm,
to pay for you all the time. I
yeah.
find those guys, I'm not saying all are that way, but those ones are a little bit more or, controlling.
And then they make you feel bad because
Yeah,
they bought
because
you
yeah,
this or something.
yeah, so I don't like gifts and things like that anymore. I'm like, "Nah, don't buy me anything." I'm
Yeah.
like I really, like, don't want flowers, nothing, because I found, especially in the narcissistic actually in both the codependent and the narcissistic relationship, that was their way of like apologizing or trying to get you on the side. It's just, here's, here, I'll buy you this, buy that. And I'm like, I don't want it. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's an
Yeah.
empty sorry. Like, it
Yeah.
really is an empty sorry.
Yeah, actions are more
Actions,
powerful than
yeah.
words.
And I find now I'm in a healthy relationship finally, that doing things and I like as more meaningful for your partner. That's just me. I know everyone's love languages are different, but I'm finding that's more important. And looking after you when you're sick and those kind of small things is what you should be looking for. Like I had one experience where I was at a hospital and partner at the time, I had an operation, was put under anesthetic and they were to collect me. And instead of coming to get me from the front door, they couldn't find the entrance and told me to come and find them. And I was like,
What?
What the hell?
I know. And I was like, hang on a second.
Holy shit.
That's so
What the
screwed
hell?
up.
I know. It's just these little telltale signs. You're like,
Aw.
I should have paid attention to these things
Yeah.
because if you're gonna have a baby with this person, yeah, no.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is you didn't get up, right?
No, I yelled at them.
Yeah,
I was
good,
like, you need to come
good.
here. Pick me up.
Oh my god, that's so
I'm on, like,
bad.
all kinds of anesthetics and stuff. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
So when you said that they were putting down friends and like your work and stuff, was it directly to them? Just telling them?
Yeah, and then be like, "Oh, that person's not good." And for example, actually in both relationships, one I was working in retail and I wanted to go up and because I was a manager and the next kind of step up back then was like a visual merchandiser or like a area manager. And I was like, "Oh, I really want to apply for this job but it means I'll be traveling." And they were like, "No, you can't."
Wow.
Mm,
And I was like,
yeah.
stupid enough at the time. And then another instance I had was that in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's this girl who used to be, it's still floating around, it was like the girls in gi camp where all the girls in Australia would go train for a week
Mm.
together. And I was really excited, wanted to go to it. And the partner then was like, no.
Oh my god, what a party pooper.
What?
It's like, if I can't go, you're not going. And I was like,
It's a girls'
what?
trip.
I
Yeah.
know. And I was like, and then I remember that night I like bawled my eyes out because I thought that person was different.
Mm,
And I kind of realized then that they were just a
yeah.
little bit controlling. Yeah. And now these days I'm like, nah, it's not worth your happiness and your own personal growth. Like no one should be stunting you from doing the things you want to do.
Yeah, they shouldn't hold you back.
Yeah.
They should be
That's crazy.
enabling you to be better.
Better.
Yeah, they should be supporting you kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just finding the right friends to around you.
Yeah. So do you think some of the friendships that you had as well weren't really
Yeah, at the time, I didn't have the best of friends, and the ones I did have all just slipped away, just through the distance part, and then most of them didn't realize what was going on too. And then the codependent relationship, I did have a group of friends, and I was a little bit actually a lot stronger. And then so I came across a lot of, and I'm in the martial arts industry, a lot of strong women that just didn't take
Take
shit.
shit.
Yeah, and having them around me was just really inspiring that
Yeah.
you can stand up for yourself and you don't need to be stuck in that place. And all of their support made it 100 times easier. And having those good female role models
Yeah.
around me. So I'm really grateful for that this time round. And you're always going to have people that are not happy for you or whatever, but at the end of the day, they're not in that relationship.
Yeah. You
Like,
can't please everyone.
Yeah, you
either.
can't please everyone, and you can't really comment on two people when they're alone. Like that's their business.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm. So because you had a few different experiences with them, were they a bit different every single time too? Like,
Yeah.
because you said there's different types of like emotional.
Yeah, emotional. I had one extreme one that was like deemed domestic violence, and then the codependent one was everything seemed like a happy picket fence from the outside, perfect life kind of thing. And it started that way, and unfortunately, that person hadn't healed themselves from previous relationships and brought a lot of baggage into the current, and then projected that onto me, even though I wasn't doing anything, and then the counselor picked that out, and I didn't realize because we were together all the time that that person didn't actually like me going out by myself. If I went for a run, they were calling me all the time, and it was there was no personal space
Mm.
whatsoever. And it was nothing violent or aggressive or anything like that. It took me to actually want to go and have a girls' night. Then I, would get a flurry of messages like, don't bother coming home. I know
Oh
you with
my
someone else. And it's like,
god.
I barely go out, like, maybe once or twice a year. And this is what I got to go, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I was just with the girls and I was like, they're like, that's not healthy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
Yeah.
really
yeah. And
Far
then
out.
because they said that to me, I was like, okay, like, this isn't a healthy relationship. And it's been like this for X amount. They're not going to change because they're not happy with themselves. They're not secure with themselves. And I'm not going to put up with their insecurities because I haven't done anything wrong. And I think if you know deep down inside that you've done everything right in a relationship and you've, exhausted it and it's time to move on, you should.
yeah, or like wait for the right time to say
Yeah, and I think I
something.
made that mistake in that. I tried to do all the right things, and that's when the counselor said to me, they're like, "You've done what you needed to do. It sounds like you're already out the door. So why are you still there?" And I'm like, "But I'm doing the right thing." They're like, "No, gone are the days where you just stay in a relationship because you're in it. You want to leave, you can leave. But you just wake up eventually."
Yeah, I think when you're in the moment yourself, it's sometimes harder to get yourself to step
Yeah,
away.
and
Or,
because you build a life together and you also having to go apart, and I think that part's the hard part.
like the fear of letting go.
Letting go, and because in that relationship, we had a good lifestyle, but you know what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah.
I wasn't happy still, so, like, and I stayed in it as long as I could. Um, I exhausted it, like, there wasn't anything that was gonna come from it anymore.
Because you mentioned you seeked out to a counselor.
Yeah.
Was that something early in these relationships that you started seeing
Um,
one, or?
in the domestic violence one, I did go to a couple and they did try to tell me to leave and that I wasn't crazy and all these kinds of things. And then after I finished that relationship, I went to counseling a lot, which helped me heal, obviously. And and then in the codependent relationship, I actually went to counseling with that partner in order to try and save that relationship. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well, but I tried, and then I also saw an independent counselor on the side, which kind of summed up everything nicely
Mm.
for me and gave me helped me make my decision and feel confident in that decision that I was doing the right thing, 'cause I needed to know I was doing the right thing to walk away.
Was that something that you instinctly kind of knew to go see a counselor? Was it like,
A lot of friends suggested it. A lot of my female friends are like, "Oh, before you leave, like, why don't you try couples counseling?" And then I was like, "Okay," my doctor said, "Go and do your own counseling as well."
mm,
And that really helped,
that's good.
especially if you're stuck there and you
Yeah.
don't know if you should leave or not. It's probably a really smart idea to do. And if your partner's not willing to do the counseling, then that says a lot for what they think about the relationship.
Mm,
Yeah.
Because if they're not open about talking about their problems or open enough to discuss these issues, then that's probably a good enough sign.
yeah.
And then it might not fix your relationship, but you can kind of both get some closure in the sense that this is why your relationship doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are the things you need to heal. And these are the things you need to heal before you enter into another relationship. And one of the other red flags, remember, sorry, we started on red flags.
Yeah.
One of the other red flags that I've found is, and I'm sure girls can be the same, I just don't date girls, so I can't speak, I can't speak
for
on that
those.
topic, is that when you find somebody and you're dating them and they're still going on about their ex-partner
Ah,
and
yeah,
it goes on
yeah.
forever and like they just
Shit.
totally run them down. Like, I understand, when you start dating someone the first couple of months, you like kind of get to know each other and you like want to know
The
about each other's past.
past,
But
yeah.
then 6 months, a year, 2 years goes on and they're still going on like
Yeah.
every week about how horrible their ex is and
That's a red
slagging
flag.
them. That is a red flag. They're not over that person
Yeah.
Oh my
and they should
god.
not be in another.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Like, and it becomes draining.
Yeah,
red
it's kind of
flags.
like, what am I here for then if you're going to keep talking about your ex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Far out. Wow. I have no words. That's like, yeah, you got to get over it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still caught up, and then that's why they take everything out on you because they're
Mm.
still over
Thinking
stuck in
about
there,
that.
yeah.
and
yeah.
whatever's happened in that relationship, you must be doing it to them, even if that person did or didn't do those.
And also kind of explains or shows why, like, if you're not ready or you haven't healed yourself, you shouldn't go into a relationship. Like, people are thinking about the ex or like things that happen because you're still thinking about these situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to watch out for that one.
Yeah, that's why they call it rebound bitches
Yeah.
or whatever. the fuck it is.
Rebound bitch.
Yeah, because like you know how some relationships, if it ends negatively or whatever, then either the male or female will go out and try and find another partner straight away,
Mhm.
and they always say it's a rebound bitch because they're still stuck in the whole ex. Like to have someone talk about that shit.
Talking constantly.
Holy crap, that's fucked.
And they're like that partner's still in your life.
Did you ever like say, dude, shut the fuck up or get over it?
Are you done yet?
Yeah, are you done, man? You getting over it? Or like, what the did you actually go, dude, bruh, you gotta settle down?
No, actually, I probably just
You shrugged it off kind of thing?
Yeah, I was like, he's still not over it. Like, you could tell.
Damn, you did well. You put up with
Yeah.
I'm too patient. I'm too nice. One of my downfalls is I'm too nice, and I'm trying not to be. The current partner I'm seeing at the moment, he's really like, don't apologize. Like, he's just trying to undo all those really bad behaviors you pick up from being in these relationships, which has been really helpful.
That's
that
really
he's
good.
identifying and not taking advantage of it. Because I still have little things that I do, and I don't realize that I'm doing them.
The habits.
Yeah, the habits that come from being in abusive relationships. And it's good to see, like, even just coming out to this, like, would normally give me anxiety in my previous relationships because I don't know what I was going to go back home to. And going home, like, I have no dramas when I get home. And that's taken a long time for me to be able to do that.
That's so good. So proud. Are there some little habits that you could share with us, like the small things that you're trying to unwork?
Yeah, over apologizing.
Mm.
Or I'll try and diffuse the situation as quick as possible by starting off with, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll even do it when I'm texting and I'm like, and now I make myself delete. I'm like, why am I even sorry for? But it's a really bad habit. And a lot of people picked up that I do it. I'm trying to get rid of the anxiety, from going out.
It's giving you the permission to go out.
Yeah, the permission to go out without, or even just going out and not telling them every single thing I do feels really like justifying why I'm going out. So like, even if I just go to the grocery shops and go somewhere else, in my head, I'm like, tell them that I did that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I don't, and I'm like, there's no dramas.
Yeah.
They're not coming home going, what did you do today? Or you didn't tell me I was doing that. And I was like, oh, cool, sweet. This is normal. So this is a healthy relationship
Yep.
instead of having to have a data log.
Yep.
You clock in, clock
out
out.
and like, who'd you talk to? All those kinds of things. I think that's probably
The main one.
that was I've still got left over a little bit.
That would be so
Particularly-
tiring as well for
Yeah.
you mentally to have to think about all these things before you do something.
No, it's good that you've got someone that supports you but reminds you, hey, you're doing this, stop doing it.
Yeah.
But also
Yeah.
has the patience to, wait
Yeah.
for you to unlearn that too. Because they might, over time get frustrated or something, but to be patient to let you unlearn.
Yeah.
You're laughing.
Just the guy not getting over his girlfriend thing. That's
I've had two partners were like that. All right.
Mm.
You mentioned when you were speaking to all the psychiatrists, they were mentioning to you that you were sticking around because you were providing something or you wanted to give something.
Yeah, so especially in the codependency one, I was looking after them. I was doing everything that they needed. And then she explained it like a willow tree that pretty much they had just lent on me too much. And most relationships should have some kind of 50-50.
Yeah.
Where when, you take it in turns leaning on each other and being the strong one throughout the relationship, not one person just being the strong one, taking all the load and doing everything. So things like, for example, work-wise, just simple things like emails, I'd find that they weren't responding professionally enough. So I would then write their share of the emails. That's just a little example because it wasn't done properly and that wasn't professional, and because I could do it better, it just became, oh, that's your job. And then I just accumulated all these little jobs that just grew and grew and grew, and to the point where it was just me doing everything instead of that person learning, oh, how can I do it better? Those little things, and like running the business, I ended up doing everything. and they just kind of kept stepping back. The more and more they could see that I was competent, I was capable, which was lovely. But then it's like, hang on a second.
You're doing everything now.
Yeah, now I'm doing
Mm.
everything. But now hang on, let's go back to 50-50, or, even in group situations, we'd be working in a team and that particular person would be always standing at the back trying to tell everyone else what to do, or everyone's physically doing things and that. Like that, yeah, that's just an example.
Yeah. Shit. So you mentioned that you always found yourself being in relationships that were similar characteristics, as in the guys, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that happened? Is that just because you always surround yourself with people like that, or your mind, you always just gravitated towards people like that?
I think no, this is something one of my friends asked one of my girlfriends asked me just recently. She was like, "Why?" You have to look at yourself and go, "Why did you attract these people?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, why did I?" And I look back and I go, when I grew up, there was like a big group of people that still believed in women should do everything, listen to the man. And so I had a lot of that influence in my life, which probably wasn't helpful. And then, my mother back then was, the stay-at-home wife kind of scenario as well. So I did have a couple of outside, like my aunties and uncles that didn't have that kind of relationship, but I did have that as a heavy influence growing up, which I think enabled me to slide into that a little bit more acceptingly than someone that wasn't raised that way. And then once you lose your confidence and ability to stand up for yourself or voice yourself, yeah, it's just easy to do it. And then when I got out of the domestic violence relationship into the codependent, I went for that person because they seemed safe. They weren't violent. They weren't, they were quiet. And I think that particular girlfriend said to me, "You went with them because they're safe and because you were scared of men." And she said to me, one of the things that really stuck with me was that a strong man is someone that has complete control over his emotions and is able to express their emotions. So that stuck with me. And I think that is probably really true.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
man should be able to show you, all of his different emotions, but also emotional maturity behind it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, and I think men, I don't know if it's because back in the day they were kind of taught not to show emotions, so they are unable to function on an emotional intelligence to a female on the same level. But there is a lot of men out there that I've learnt that can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being strong isn't really all about the physical strength too. It's like having the discipline to have the strength to do something or like be able to think the right way.
Yeah, react under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's really true what your friend said. Like the strength are the things that could come in many different ways, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's unhealthy. Sometimes like other people can show really healthy sides of strength.
Yeah. It's being able to deal with situations and get through ups and downs, like that's someone that's strong, like being able to pull themselves out of a low point as well.
Yeah, and that applies to both men and women. I think
Yeah.
what you've done is really good. Like you've shown a lot of strength to get yourself out of these
And that was
situations.
another thing I found, like, just recently in the last 3 months, I've had to, for the first time, lean on other people.
Mm.
And then with my current partner, I was like, how much leaning is too much? Because now I'm like, I'm not used to this, like, being able to go, "Oh, can you do this for me? Can you do that?" And I'm like, am I asking too much? Am I being so now I've got this kind of, like, opposite anxiety of, like, when do I pull back? When are they gonna get sick of me?
Because you know the bad side, so you don't want to
Yeah, so
be
you
on that
don't
side.
but everyone's
Yeah.
like, "No, this is your time to do it. You need to lean on those around you." And I'm like, "Oh god, okay, I'm trying."
But it's
Yeah.
good that you're asking because then, like, at least I know that you might have that fear of being too much.
Yeah,
That
and
whereas,
pushing
like,
the
someone else might not have asked and just be like, "Can you do this?" You know?
pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, so you mentioned as well that you went into a business with one of these partners that you
Yeah.
did have an unhealthy relationship with. What was that like? Because did you guys end up splitting the business or something?
So when we originally separated, we both agreed that it was both our business. I'd been working in there for 6 or 7 years, and I'd left my job,
Yeah.
dedicated my time and myself, and I was teaching around the clock and running everything. And I was like, we can both work here. And unfortunately, he didn't. He wanted to specify that I couldn't see people, I couldn't do this, blah 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 blah.
Even after you guys split ways?
Damn.
Yeah, and so he Decided at the beginning of the year all of a sudden that he didn't want to be part of the business, kind of just dropped it on me.
Wow.
And I was not expecting that at all. And we did try to stop him, came up with a few different ideas, but done is done. And I got it. Yeah. And it's been a bit of
Wow.
a
Yeah.
struggle because it wasn't in the best state when it was handed to me. And I've been just trying to resolve it and fix it. And that put me on a bit of a anxiety spiral. I think when we met up, I was telling you that the Beyond Blue counselling service for small business owners was amazing for me, and it
Okay.
doesn't
Yeah.
cost anything. So, that really helped, and 'cause you don't realize what you're doing, and you're, like, worrying, you're trying to fix everything, but that worrying is actually detrimental to everything, and you can't fix everything. But then when you have someone just put it into perspective for you, it's like, "Oh, okay. Is that all I'm doing?" I'm just going around in circles in my head every night. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And it's only, like it only took a couple of sessions for me just to start to
Yeah.
put things back to perspective
That's
at a
great.
reasonable amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why they're there for what
Yeah,
they
so
are.
I'd
Yeah.
highly recommend that one.
I actually didn't even know that they existed for like businesses.
I think it's new since COVID, so I was just,
Oh,
like,
shit.
up one night worrying about my life, and I was scrolling on Facebook and it came up and I was like, "Oh, perfect, because I don't really have any money for this."
Mm,
Like, especially if your business is struggling, like,
Yeah.
the last thing you wanna do is then now fork out more
More
money for your
money.
mental health, like, that's a
Yeah.
great combo. Uh
was it easy for you to have to run a business with a partner that you split with at the same time, or like were there some things that you had to set in place?
We tried to set in place we had, like, a mediator that was really neutral, and, that person was trying to help us out, but her partner did not want anything to do with that and avoided that.
Still tried to do things their own
Yeah,
way.
I know that was the only way it was gonna work. So but then when they left, I didn't really notice, to be honest, that they'd left. Yeah, and like most people have said, they haven't even noticed the
Yeah.
other party's not there anymore,
Yeah.
to be honest. So that was a bit of a bit of a relief,
Mm.
for me.
Yeah, aside from the like them leaving and the rough experiences, I think you've learnt a lot though. All the things throughout all these experiences, you've learnt so much. Like you made a really good, strong friend group out of the people that you've met along the way, and like
Yeah.
you've learnt how to do these certain different tasks or things. Like you've learnt so much. So
Yeah, it's been
there's
a
so many
huge
things.
Big
learning
journey.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you have to be self-aware. Like, you need to really, like, learn how to reflect upon yourself, and you can't blame everyone for your actions or even the people that have done things to you,
Yeah,
because at some point you allowed those things to happen, and you need to heal yourself and reflect
yeah.
upon yourself from doing that, and that's all with the mindset.
Yeah. We had a similar conversation with one of my friends that came on, and he was just saying like he kept making mistakes at work, and it was just at first he just kept kind of not really realizing what the mistake was, and
Mhm.
just knows that he did make a mistake but didn't think about it. So it's kind of the same thing. Like when you make mistakes, really have a think about what went wrong, like why did this happen, and then actually apply different changes or things to do so that you don't make the same mistakes again. So I think
Yeah.
it like realizing or even thinking about situations and why things happen is really important.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the biggest takeout is the fact that you actually saw a counselor to begin with. I think a lot of people don't normally, they're not open to it or they're scared to do it. And I think it's good that that was the first thing you kind of did from the get go.
Yeah, because I think also because they wanted to put me on medication, I was like, "I don't wanna be on medication."
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, like, some of that medication's only temporary if you do the counseling, and I think going to see, your GP is really important regardless, and because you can get free visit,
Mm.
and you have to go in with an open mind. They're not gonna fix all your problems, but they'll teach you skills in order to fix yourself kind of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you have to be willing to try. If you don't want to, then
You're wasting your time kind of thing. Yeah.
you're gonna go, "This is a waste of time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that that's really important for a lot of things too. For example, when we're helping other people out, helping friends out, sometimes you can tell when they're not ready for change or ready to work on these things. And as much as you can help guide them or give them advice, like it's really on them to really start working
Yeah,
and thinking about these things too.
definitely. Yeah, I've found a lot of people, whether it's like they have gambling addiction or alcohol, or they're in a domestic violence relationship, if they don't wanna help themselves, you can't. You can put your hand out, you can try, but then you've gotta draw the line and protect yourself
Mm.
and just keep the door open if they're willing to change. And I've learned now with people, because I'd be like, feeling sorry for everyone. But now I'm like, okay, go see help. Like, because, it's too much for me to take
Yeah.
on, and like anyone to take on that's trying to live their own life.
Yeah, you got to look after yourself
Yeah.
too, as well as like, as much as you want to help someone else, you are also important.
Yeah.
Well, from all of these experiences, what are some like key takeaways that you can share with people, whether it's like emotional, like things that you've learned along the way?
Key takeaways, pretty much make sure that you're in a good, healthy mindset before you enter into any relationship, and watch out for those really telltale signs, all those kinds of things. If they haven't healed from their own emotional trauma, whether it be childhood or previous relationships, that's probably another big telltale sign to keep away. And then when you're going through things, that it's not a bad thing to go and seek professional help, because they will really identify what's going on, whether it's in the relationship or you personally. And they're really helpful for yourself, and to keep that open mind that, like, no one's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. These are really, really good points.
Yeah. I still can't get over the can't
Why
get
I
over
have
the girlfriend thing.
flashback
That's
from
crazy.
previous experiences, or
Wow, that's just
It's good to know that you thought that was odd too. That's great.
yeah, like 2 years later, and you're still talking about someone from the past. That's a
that's
bit
crazy.
long.
That's bruh, get over it. Like shit, move on, man.
I can just
Far out.
imagine you if someone said
Dude,
that.
I'll be the commentator. I'll be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, mate? Oh shit. But look, thank you for joining. I feel our listeners will definitely get something out of this, because I'm sure there's someone that's going through the same shit. Because your journey, ultimately, what you've explained, that's a learning curve. And it could be red flags, as you mentioned, for people who are basically going through the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you've obviously spoken about it. And this is a really serious topic. So
Mhm.
But before we let you go, were there any plugs that you wanted to share with our listeners so people can find you?
Oh, so Instagram's just Shantal Two Kings Martial Arts. And I'm also working with the KYUP project for domestic violence.
That's really
Nice.
cool.
Like 50 female martial artists from across Australia, working on a project to help instill confidence into girls, especially around schools around Australia. So
Nice.
to try and
Mm.
help them see their worth and standing up for themselves.
Nice.
Yeah.
And avoiding putting themselves in those situations, I guess.
Yeah.
So that'll be a pretty cool project I'm looking forward to.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
That's
that's
really,
awesome.
really
Yeah.
good.
For the listeners, what sort of martial arts do you?
Okay, I started in...
Here's the list.
Yeah. Here's the list. It sounds really like too good to be true, but somehow I am maintaining this. Taekwondo, Hapkido, and then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. So I teach Hapkido and Taekwondo, trying to compete in Muay Thai if I ever get out there.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, nice. Don't fuck with her. She'll fuck you up.
You'll have to come and have a spa with us one day.
Yeah,
if
definitely,
you're
for
ever around
sure.
Yeah, for
the
sure, man.
area, come beat us up.
I think it's the other way around. Yeah, so I was going to say thank you for joining us and sharing such a big experience. Just a really good takeaway, even if you weren't in anything like abusive, but just something, the small cues of unhealthy relationship. Yeah, so thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having me.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us, and goodbye.
Peace.
See ya.